Please remember, none of this is financial advice, and I have a bias towards the XX network. Your mind is like a bank. What you deposit is what you can withdraw. Warren Buffett.
Capital. Now, the way that I see it, and a treasurer once told me that banks can perish two ways. You can perish through capital, which is like going via a terminal illness, or you can go very, very quickly in the form of a heart attack through liquidity mismanagement. So that's where we have it. So, do I see more banks collapsing? Very much so. Do I see more banks collapsing? Very much so. Do I see more banks collapsing? Very much so.
The current state of the banking system is in turmoil. Banks are only holding 8% of your money, while the rest has been lent out to others. The tight monetary policy is resulting in a decrease in money supply and circulation. It's causing chaos in the banking world. Businesses are moving their savings to alternative options like T-bills or CDs, money markets, or fintech platforms like PayPal or TransferWise. So the banks are all sprawled out with assets and investments. When you go to the bank and you withdraw all your money from the bank, they have to sell their assets and give you the cash. Ideally, they'd have the cash on hand and they'd just be able to rotate it like a Ponzi scheme that works. However, the Ponzi scheme is coming to an end, and you saw that with Silicon Valley Bank. There is a fundamental problem, and it boils down to monetary policy and banking policies.
The further you get into banks, you'll find out that within the infrastructure that kind of manages their cash management and intraday business is antiquated and fractured. So a lot of people are managing intraday balances on Excel. I once met a senior treasury person, and I said, "What is your current state vis-a-vis your future state looking like?" He said, "My current state is Excel. My future state is not Excel." I've got nothing against Excel, but you shouldn't be managing multi-billion-dollar book on Excel.
Congress and the banks are currently blaming fintechs for the rapid withdrawal process that they have offered the public. Multi-billion-dollar banks are so antiquated that they're using Excel spreadsheets as their technology. This is why there are so many errors in the banking world.
So it goes back to infrastructure again and the lack of investment. So depending on the size of the institution, so tier ones, well, the way that I kind of look at it is like the three Bs. You can either bolster your existing setup, and if it's Excel, you can't really bolster that anymore. You can either build something or you can buy something. So you're left with three options. If you're a big tier one, you're probably going to go down the build route, because a lot of the banks, and having worked for large institutions, they're essentially tech companies with banking licenses, so they're able to do it. But once you come down into the lower tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 and challenger banks, they need to partner, and technology companies need to complement what they've got already to ensure that they're better placed.
Where, if you're a bank, why create and develop your own software? You're not a software company, you're a bank. This is why so many banks have partnered with Ripple, and this is why you particularly see smaller banks partner with Ripple. RippleNet offers infrastructure that is ISO 222 compliant. This was a mandate that all banks had to migrate to. And RippleNet has gateways to the XRP Ledger, which offers faster, cheaper cross-border payments and settlements.
Because treasurers and cash managers are going to be put under more pressure by their boards and by the regulators to make sure in what-if scenarios they have everything in place to cater for that. So it all boils down to complementing and partnering with technology that's available.
There was a lot of hype circulating FNA. FNA partnered with Ripple, and a document came out a few years ago, I believe in 2020. Well, anyway, FNA is partnered with the U.S. Treasury and the Federal Reserve and the Department of Defense. And what NFA does is they test for systemic risk, and they run simulations. So it turns out that Ripple partnered with FNA for the testing of systemic risk. So if you listen to what he was saying that this software needs to be resilient against systemic risk. That's going to be some of the regulations that are put forth. And RippleNet has the same company that tests the treasury software, they've tested Ripple software and made sure that their software is resilient enough to sustain a systemic shock.
Quite some progress on the technology front. We have connected the well-known, very well-established clearing and settlement systems, but we also did some proof of concepts, some testing using new technologies such as blockchain. We also have private initiatives which are going on. So we have, I feel like on the technology side, we are pretty on our way. There's other topics, I think, where in order to get to this desired instant cross-border payments, we need some more work. And for example, we need to solve for the regulatory divergence. We need to solve for standardization. We need to solve and manage the risk.
This woman comes from JP Morgan, and she's most excited about the technology, specifically blockchain technology. However, with instant cross-border settlement and payments, they need to manage the risk. That's what the delay is. The regulations on the global front, they need to make sure that the banking regulations all accommodate every type of situation. Like I went back to Silicon Valley Bank. The introduction of instant withdrawals contributed to Silicon Valley Bank. Collateral will have to be redefined, and it goes back to FNA. They provide the testing for systemic shock. And this is why I believe Larry Fink is telling the world that the entire bond market's going to be tokenized. Everything's going to be tokenized.
The multilateral platform will give the financial institution a reduced time and effort. Again, like we discussed, is reducing the amount of time to negotiate these bilateral agreements. And what we've seen from our own experience is that can take up to 2 years to open a corridor. It will also give the consumer the possibility to be able to see and have a similar experience. And also it gives them the access to open to new channels without opening up bank accounts. So from our perspective, there is a real opportunity to move to a multilateral platform. And we really support the leadership from the G20 saying that the urgency around immediate payments is something we support. And from our experience of being global in 13 global markets where we operate critical national infrastructure, plus our experience in RTP, we are targeting some specific pain points which we're hoping to solve.
This guy comes from MasterCard. As you know, MasterCard is a RippleNet partner that was leaked at a Brooks Entwistle conference. Well, anyway, what he is saying, if you boil what he's saying, right, that the world's turning into a unipolar world. It's no longer a euro-dollar market. And what he's saying is that corridors between two different currency pairs takes 2 years plus to open those corridors. Now, with the automated market maker, this is an instantaneous process. That's why I'm so bullish on the XRP Ledger, is because Ripple is holding the bank's hands and bringing them to the XRP Ledger.
End user perspective, there are quite a few pain points as we just talked through. But as we've talked about over the last couple of days, there's been lots of initiatives around interoperability, which have really benefited users, millions of users. And this in turn benefits the FI. Once the corridor is opened, it gives the FI the enablement to be able to provide a payment, a P2P payment, similar to what they'd see domestically.
So once a corridor is open, peer-to-peer payments are available. So think about all the partners that work with Ripple and potentially could be market makers on the XRP Ledger. Navati, for example, is issuing their own stable coin. If, let's say, Neum decides to issue a Singapore dollar on the XRP Ledger, Navati and Neum could partner together, create a liquidity pool that could be crowdfunded by the people. They create the bulk of it, and now they have instant settlement between the Hong Kong dollar and the Australian dollar overnight. Something that takes 2 years can happen instantaneously.
You see, the biggest point that we have been observing, despite all the geopolitical things that are happening currently across the globe, the increased demand for global cross-border payments. You see it on the statistics, they are year on year, there is in fact increasing. And that is something where actually the demand is there, and also the demand for speedier transactions across the globe isn't actually stopping. The second point, like I mentioned, the G20 roadmap, the regulatory roadmap on actually what we need to do as a bank, we need to comply. And one of the biggest ingredients on that one is the ISO migration, where the industry has been kicking off with the ISO migration, laying the foundation for the rails of the future, but also looking into, let's say, new technologies, being even possible to work on a DLT solution in the future as well. So at the end, there is a lot of things that are happening, that is requiring for more speedier transactions across the globe.
Cross-border payments are in demand, and the quicker and cheaper they happen, the better. Now, we just had our summary judgment, and the chart for XRP looks great. The more and more volume that's pushed through the ledger, the higher the prices, the more utility XRP has. Now, if you put a Swift rail right next to an ODL rail, and you put the prices next to each other, Swift would be like $50, while ODL would be something like $5 or $6. Now, they could charge even a little bit more. They can go up to $30 compared to Swift. That's at $50 and still be less money. So what I'm getting at is that banks that are using ODL could take a small haircut on the movement of money using XRP while it's in an uptrend. If consumers, not even banks, were willing to take small haircuts on the international fees that they pay using ODL rails, then they can contribute to the buy pressure that we're seeing with XRP.
There are certain things that are actually current barriers that I've been working on, and things what we need still to do as an industry. The first one is the lack of standardization. I think that is the piece with the migration towards ISO. That is the first step into the right direction. That will allow a much more harmonized approach, a much more efficient approach, but also increasing the interoperability between the different systems that are out there. That is the one point. On the other side, it's also not everything can be solved by technology and standards. You also need to have a much more harmonized regulatory framework. And that is something where the dialogue with regulator needs to be ongoing to see on how we could harmonize or standardize that one to the extent possible.
The G20 has made international payments into a priority. Now, this is Anthony Welfare, and you can see this is banking partner BCRS. BCRS is a Romanian banking partner, and it looks like they've built a securities/bond/ESG type of platform with an instance of the XRP Ledger. So it offers distributed tokenized securities, one layer regulated FMI instead of multi-year custody settlement trading interconnected platform, automation, cost savings, direct retail participation, regulated fractionalization of tokenized securities, secondary market for tokenized securities, AMM. Issuance on ledger of fungible tokens, regulated securities, integration of regulated settlement coins, MiCA stablecoins, and CBDC. So on the top, it says Axology is XRPL based technology layer for DLT transactional settlement system, DLT TSS, a new regulated institution type under EU DLT pilot regime regulation. Seize the momentum for regulatory certainty, build on crypto industry insights, solve a real problem with CBDC. All right, so Anthony Welfare, BCRS. This is a bank in Romania. It's Banca Comercială Română, a member of the ERS group, and it's one of the most important financial groups of Romania and includes a universal bank operation. BCR's bank number one in Romania in the bank transaction market. They have 2,000 ATMs, 14,500 POSs, 430 retail units. Now, that's their banking partner for creating this platform, Axology. Axology is a compliant, scalable DLT-based framework for impact investing, immutable ESG formation and tracking. Now, they offer what sounds weird about this, right? So normally I would think, oh, this is just an instance of the XRP ledger. But here's where it kind of gets muddled. A blockchain-based accounting system of tokenized sustainable securities will provide ultra-high liquidity and near real-time atomic transactions 24/7 for security exchanges and on-chain peer-to-peer decentralized trading, OTC. Decentralized trading. So either they made a sidechain of the XRP ledger and they went about it and decentralized it somehow, or they're using XRP mainnet. Because they said this is decentralized trading, that's odd to me. And then also they say high liquidity, provides ultra high liquidity. Well, XRP is pretty liquid, so what are they talking about here? Because if you just made a sidechain, none of the tokens on the sidechain would be liquid from the get-go except for XRP. When you mint XRP and bring it into a brand new sidechain, right? That's the only thing that's of value at first. Or they could have stable coins backed by this bank in Romania, Romanian stable coins that are already have an automated market maker and they're paired next to these securities. So they have securities. It looks like it's focused on ESG derivatives, securities, and that type of stuff, right? So they're partnered with Orion and SuperHow. Their influence is sustainable security tokenization, right? So Bank of Romania. This is Erste Group. Erste Group is Czech Republic, Romania, Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia, Montenegro, which was another CBDC, Austria, and not to mention Putin just announced Russia's CBDC, which there was an Atlantic Council PDF that said that Russia was testing the XRP ledger as a CBDC. So Russia, kind of shares, well, I'm not sure if they share a border, but they're pretty close to all these countries, right? They're somewhere here, I guess. But they're pretty close to these countries. I'm sure there are trade agreements between these countries and Russia, right? Good banking is produced not by good laws, but by good bankers. Hartley Withers. Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. If you enjoy content like this, please consider joining my Patreon or my Ghost site, dmjr.ghost.io.